20 years back, when I was 34 years old, my life revolved around spreadsheets, freight schedules, and the belief that hard work would always be rewarded. I had climbed the rungs of a fiercely competitive industry, becoming one of the few female executives at North Point Freight Solutions, a fast-growing logistics firm in the Midwest. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from, because I know betrayal and ambition aren't limited to one zip code. From the outside, I looked like a corporate success story, a rising executive with a corner office, a reliable team, and a direct pipeline to the company's top leadership. But behind the polished presentations and late-night strategy calls, a storm was building, a quiet, calculated storm aimed directly at me. I had no idea that my greatest professional triumph would be used as the weapon to push me out, and I certainly didn't know that the very people I trusted most were preparing a scheme so precise it nearly cost me everything I'd worked for. What happens when loyalty, innovation, and years of dedication become the perfect ammunition for betrayal? To answer that, let's step back to the winter of that fateful year. The air outside was sharp and icy, but inside North Point's headquarters the atmosphere buzzed with opportunity. Our division was about to land the largest contract in company history, a deal I had nurtured for over 18 relentless months. I still remember the late nights, the endless video conferences with international partners, the spreadsheets filled with freight rates and route optimizations. My team called it the Everest Project because scaling it felt like climbing the world's highest peak, and we were days away from planting our flag. But every mountain has its hidden crevasses, and I was about to step straight into one. I'd like to believe I wasn't naive. I knew the log. ISTIC's industry was a jungle where alliances shifted with every quarterly report, but I also believed in merit, that if you worked hard, built strong teams, and delivered results, no one could take that from you. That belief was the blind spot my rivals exploited. It started with small, almost invisible signs. A project update mysteriously omitted my name. Budget approvals stalled without explanation. Meetings were scheduled when I was traveling for client negotiations, decisions made in my absence, then presented as group consensus. At first I brushed it off. Everyone faces office politics. But as the pattern repeated, a cold realization crept in. This wasn't random. Someone was deliberately cutting me out. 2 colleagues stood at the center of this quiet conspiracy. Gordon Ames, our newly appointed COO, was a master of corporate charm. He wore crisp suits and spoke in the kind of polished soundbites executives love. Lydia Cross, my longtime peer and supposed ally, was brilliant, strategic, and increasingly distant. Together they formed an alliance hidden beneath friendly smiles and congratulatory emails. Their goal wasn't just my demotion. They wanted my entire division, the Everest Project, and the recognition that came with it. The first direct blow came in the form of a leadership realignment memo. The document praised my outstanding contributions while announcing that Everest would be integrated into a new cross-functional team led by, of course, Gordon and Lydia. My name appeared only once, buried in the 3rd paragraph. Angela will transition into a strategic advisory role to ensure continuity. Advisory role. In corporate language, that meant, step aside, we've taken your mountain. I sat in my office, memo in hand, heart pounding. Years of strategy, late nights, and carefully built relationships had just been erased with a few keystrokes. But as the initial shock faded, something stronger took its place, a quiet, calculating resolve. If Gordon and Lydia thought I would quietly accept this, they had underestimated the very person who built the Everest Project brick by brick. I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to turn their own strategy into the blueprint of their downfall. They thought the shock would paralyze me. Instead, it sharpened every instinct I possessed. If Gordon Ames and Lydia Cross wanted my Everest project and my career, they were about to discover that I didn't climb mountains just to watch others plant their flags. People imagine revenge in boardrooms as shouting matches and slamming doors. Mine began with silence. To beat manipulators, you have to let them believe you're defeated. Only then can you rebuild the battlefield on your terms. How do you outplay executives who already control the chain of command? My first move was to disappear in plain sight. At the next leadership meeting, I thanked Gordon and Lydia for taking the pressure off by allowing me to focus on advisory work. The look of smug relief on Gordon's face told me I'd struck the right note. He believed the game was already over. But while he celebrated, I began documenting everything, every suspicious budget shift, every sudden policy change, every late-night email with missing recipients. I copied files to an encrypted drive, stored paper records at a trusted friend's law office, and quietly met with contacts across our partner network. I wasn't gathering dirt for gossip. I was building a fortress of facts, proof of manipulation, contract violations, and potential SEC breaches. If you've ever been underestimated, you know the power of invisibility. The very people plotting my downfall were now giving me space, believing I'd surrendered. Every meeting they held without me became another brick in the case I was quietly constructing. One evening, while reviewing shipment schedules long after most employees had gone home, a soft knock interrupted my thoughts. It was Marcus Bell, a senior logistics analyst I had mentored years earlier. "They're altering the cost models," he whispered, sliding a folder onto my desk. "If these numbers hit the auditors, it could qualify as fraud." Inside the folder were spreadsheets showing deliberate misreporting of shipping surcharges, tiny manipulations that added up to millions. Marcus wasn't just loyal, he was brave. I thanked him, secured the folder, and added it to my growing archive. But I also knew I couldn't lean too heavily on him. Protecting allies meant keeping them at arm's length, even when it hurt. Documentation alone wouldn't be enough. If I wanted to survive a corporate war, I needed an exit plan that doubled as a weapon. I reached out to an old university friend, Elena Ward, now a partner at a boutique investment firm. Over late-night coffees in a quiet downtown cafe, I shared just enough details to pique her interest without revealing the full scheme. Elena listened carefully, then leaned forward. "Angela, you don't need to win inside North Point," she said. "You need to own the next move, build something they can't steal." Her words struck like a spark. I didn't just want to defend myself. I wanted to create an opportunity so big that North Point's theft would look small by comparison. Over the next 6 months, I used every ounce of my advisory role to map the industry, competitors, emerging technologies, underserved markets. I scheduled transition meetings with vendors and partners, presenting myself as a neutral consultant. Behind the polite small talk, I was identifying talent, resources, and future investors for a project that didn't officially exist. Meanwhile, Gordon and Lydia grew careless. Their hunger for recognition made them sloppy. They boasted in private dinners about streamlining operations and creative accounting, unaware that 2 of the waitstaff were interns from our own finance department. Interns I had quietly encouraged to keep detailed notes. 9 months after the memo, North Point hosted its annual stakeholder summit at a glittering downtown hotel. Gordon and Lydia took the stage to unveil the Everest project as their crown jewel. I sat 3 rows back, a polite smile masking the adrenaline surging through me. When Gordon bragged about record-breaking efficiency, I noted every exaggerated claim. When Lydia promised transparent financial reporting, I nearly laughed. The next morning, I scheduled a private breakfast with a key member of the board, Henry Doyle, a seasoned investor with zero tolerance for corporate games. I presented a concise, well-organized dossier, Budget manipulations, email chains, internal memos, and third-party confirmations. Henry listened in silence, eyes narrowing with every page. By the end of the meeting, he placed a heavy hand on my shoulder. "Stay quiet," he said. "We'll handle this. And Angela, don't let them see you coming." Within weeks, the board initiated a routine compliance review. Gordon and Lydia remained oblivious, even as auditors swarmed the Everest division. I continued my calm advice, sorry duties, answering questions when asked, never volunteering more than necessary. Behind the scenes, I finalized my own escape route. Elena Ward and I secured seed funding for a new logistics startup designed to capitalize on emerging eco-shipping regulations, an angle North Point had ignored. I recruited Marcus and 2 other trusted analysts, offering them equity stakes that North Point could never match. Then, one icy January morning, an anonymous email arrived in my private inbox. "They know you're collecting evidence. Be careful." My pulse hammered. Had Gordon discovered my archive? Was Marcus exposed? I double-checked my encrypted files, changed passwords, and moved critical documents to a second off-site location, but the warning only strengthened my resolve. If they were starting to suspect, it meant the board's investigation was working. The walls were closing in, not on me, but on them. To everyone else, I remained the picture of professional composure. I attended staff parties, congratulated Gordon on minor achievements, even sent Lydia a birthday card. Every friendly gesture bought me more time. Inside, I kept repeating a single mantra: patience is power. If you've ever faced a rival who thinks they've already won, you understand this tension. It's the quiet thrill of knowing that every smile hides a secret plan, every handshake conceals a ticking clock. By spring, the board's compliance review was complete. A closed-door meeting was scheduled. My phone buzzed with a one-line text from Henry Doyle. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. The day the mountain would shift. The day the very executives who tried to erase me would be called to account, without realizing who had lit the fuse. People still ask me, was it worth it? All those years of patience, all the late nights collecting proof? Before I answer, I invite them to imagine this. You walk into a boardroom full of people who once underestimated you, and without raising your voice, you end their game in a single afternoon. Would you trade that moment for anything? The fall of Gordon Ames and Lydia Cross wasn't just a corporate scandal. It was the pivot that allowed me to rewrite my entire future on my terms. How does a person move on after winning the kind of battle most people never even dare to fight? Leaving North Point was both terrifying and exhilarating. For the first time in over a decade, I woke up without a calendar full of crisis meetings. No more late-night calls demanding last-minute budget approvals, no more fake smiles in hallways where knives were hidden behind polite greetings. But freedom came with a new kind of pressure. Ecotrans Global, my joint venture with Elena Ward, wasn't just a business, it was a statement. We launched with a mission to revolutionize freight logistics by slashing emissions and creating sustainable shipping routes. Back then, green logistics sounded like a buzzword. Today, it's an industry standard. Still, the early months tested every ounce of grit I possessed. Investors loved the concept but doubted our ability to compete against giants like North Point. Suppliers hesitated to sign contracts, fearing retaliation from my former employer. But I had something far more valuable than capital: relationships built on trust. During my quiet year of preparation at North Point, I'd cultivated allies, mid-level managers, regional partners, and shipping brokers who respected competence over politics. When I called, they answered. Within 6 months, Ecotrans secured 3 major contracts and a partnership with a European energy firm. Within a year, we were profitable. If you've ever felt trapped in a job or relationship where betrayal runs deep, you know that leaving isn't enough. You have to build something better, or the ghosts of your old life will follow you. But success didn't erase the scars. Some nights I'd wake up replaying those tense boardroom moments, wondering if I had been too ruthless. Other nights I questioned whether patience had cost me years I could have spent elsewhere. The truth is complicated. Taking the high road isn't glamorous. It's lonely. It demands a kind of discipline that few people see, and even fewer applaud. Elena noticed the weight I carried. One evening, as we reviewed quarterly numbers over late-night tea, she said, "You know, you don't have to keep proving you were right. You already won." Her words landed deeper than she realized. Winning wasn't about Gordon or Lydia anymore. It was about proving to myself that resilience could outlast ambition. 5 years after Ecotrans launched, North Point made headlines again, this time for filing bankruptcy protection. Their expansion had collapsed under the weight of scandals, lawsuits, and environmental fines. I read the news while sipping coffee in my glass-walled office, the city skyline glittering in the morning sun, the same skyline I had stared at 2 decades earlier, wondering if I would ever escape the trap they built. I didn't cheer. I didn't gloat. I simply closed the article and returned to work. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's thriving so completely that your enemies become irrelevant. 2 years after North Point's bankruptcy, I attended a global logistics conference in Geneva. As I stepped off the stage after a keynote speech, a familiar voice called my name. It was Lydia Cross. Time had softened her sharp edges. She looked older, yes, but also strangely peaceful. "Angela," she said, extending a hand. "I wanted to say I was wrong about everything." For a moment I considered walking away, but then I shook her hand. "People change," I said, "and so do the games we play." She smiled faintly. "I lost everything chasing a shortcut. You built something lasting. I hope you're proud." I didn't need her apology. But in that moment, I understood something powerful. The real victory wasn't outsmarting my rivals. It was outgrowing the need to keep score. Today, Ecotrans Global operates across 4 continents, employing thousands and setting industry benchmarks for clean logistics. Young entrepreneurs ask me for advice, expecting strategies about funding or technology. Instead, I tell them the truth. Play the long game, collect proof, build allies. Never underestimate the power of quiet preparation. Those principles saved my career and built my future. They also saved my soul. Because in the end, revenge isn't about crushing someone else. It's about refusing to let betrayal define who you become. To anyone listening who's been betrayed, overlooked, or underestimated, remember this: you don't have to fight loud to win big. Sometimes the most devastating blow is delivered in silence, years later, when you've built a life so magnificent that your enemies no longer matter.